Hello and welcome to the Doof Book Club, our monthly live stream discussion of a book chosen by you, our listeners. My name is Matt Freeman, and I am your host, and I'm joined, as always, by the nameless one,
It, it's it's Scott.
nameless Scott.
Just just Scott. That's I have a name. Hello everyone and welcome. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Friday evening. I see a bunch of people in the chat I recognize already. Hello David, hello John, hello Chris. Good to see you folks. If you happen to be listening and are brand new to this here show, welcome. We are Doof Media and we make podcasts all about the stories we love. We also arrange, organize, and lead this monthly book club. Matt will now explain for everyone what a book club is because this is only the fifth year of us doing this and no one has quite caught on to
Yeah,
what a book club is yet.
the 60th or 70th book. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do this again.
All right.
Um, each month, Scott and I select 5 books from a pool submitted to us by our wonderful Doof community. We put up a poll for all of our supporters over on Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia and let them vote on which they'd like us to talk about. The book with most votes wins, and then we all read it. Apparently, I am too soft to make out.
I am cranking you up. I don't understand that because my bar shows you going up exactly where yours is, but you're cranked now.
How I'm going to talking again just to calibrate.
Yeah, you're like as
Sounds
cranked
fine to me.
as cranked gets. Okay. Um, where were we? I got distracted.
You
The
were
book
about
club.
to tell us what we're doing
Oh
here
yeah,
right
then we
now.
then we meet on the last Friday of the month, or in the last few months, the first Friday of the month, and spend an hour or so chatting about the book. Before we get into this month's book, though, we have to do homework for next month's book, and that is we have to allow you folks sitting in chat right now to vote on what next month's book is going to be. We allow our patrons that vote, but we also give people that attend the book club live an extra vote. So right now I am dropping a straw poll into the chat, and you can click on that and vote for 2 of the 5 books available. We will add those votes to our Patreon vote and announce the winner at the end of the show. So check that out. Let us know.
That's right.
But let's get down to business, Matt. Let's talk about this month's book. Tell me what the book was and what's it about.
The book was The Tombs of ATUAN by Ursula K. Le Guin, old favorite of the book club.
Mm-hmm.
And the summary is as follows. Pinar is chosen as high priestess to the ancient and nameless powers of the earth, and everything is taken from her home, family, possessions, even her name. She is now known only as Aha, the Eaten One, the guards the shadows and guards the shadowy labyrinthine tombs of Atuan. Then a wizard, Ged Sparrowhawk, comes to steal the tomb's greatest hidden treasure, the ring of Erith Akbe. Thenar's duty is to protect the ring, but Ged possesses the light of magic and tales of a world that Tenar has never known. Will Tenar risk everything to escape from the darkness that has become her domain?
It's a pretty good little summary there. I like it.
Yeah,
It
I
kind
agree.
it kind of spoils the fact that Ged shows up, but I guess that's not really a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because I somehow knew that Ged was going to be in this book. I don't know how I knew that. I guess somebody said it at some point, and unfortunately I remembered it.
The person that said that was Ursula K. Le Guin when she finished the last book with. And then one time he traveled to the tombs of Atuan and rescued the ring of.
So unfortunate.
Um. All right, so Matt, you have to tell me what you think of this book. We did for those that maybe don't remember or weren't around at the time. We did a Wizard of Earthsea. Oh my gosh, years and years and years. One of our first book clubs, I think, was a Wizard of Earthsea. So it was a while ago, and we
Mhm.
haven't returned to Earthsea since. Obviously, since that time, we've covered 2 more Ursula K. Le Guin books and loved them both. But this is our first trip back to Earthsea. So, Matt, what did you think of this novel? And while Matt is telling us, we want to hear from you folks as well. Had you read this book before? What did you think of it?
As always, I find Le Guin's book to be just like a dose of wisdom and heart, just delivered unto me like some kind of sermon, some kind of much needed sermon that spiritually uplifts me. On top of that, of course, I also thought it was a fun, well paced read. it's interesting. I was joking with you earlier because I was saying there's nothing in this for me to self-insert into. There's no where's the hero with the sword with the you know I mean honestly even a Wizard of Earthsea had more of a standard hero's journey progression, except it was still a little bit um uh it was too realistic to be a real hero's journey progression.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But this book isn't even really trying to do hero's journey progression, at least not in a sense that's straightforward enough for you to sort of empathize with. But that's not a complaint. That's like just saying it's not doing that. It's doing something much more sort of deliberate and thoughtful and complicated with its main character, where there are like layers of psychology that you have to navigate in a way that's very very satisfying. And yeah, overall delightful experience as always. What did you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think I'm mostly in agreement with you here. I really enjoyed this book. I agree, and that's kind of what people are talking about in chat. I think if I had read these two books as a child, I definitely would have liked the first one more, because it is just much more that traditional adventure hero's journey tale, like almost by design. Like I think Le Guin was very very specifically playing in those tropes and that kind of story. And it works for that story. I have very fond memories of reading that book. And this is, it's such a fun idea that like I think Le Guin writes an afterword of this book. I don't know if you read it, but she kind of just briefly, the copy I had an afterword from her that was basically like, why did I return to Earthsea? Did I have any plans to do this? And her answer is no. I wrote this book. I saw it as an end. I put these things in it, like this throwaway reference to the Tombs of ATUAN, because like I thought it would be cool to be like, and Ged goes on to have this amazing life where he does a bunch of adventures, and here's just some random words that I threw together that show all the different adventures and accomplishments he's going to do over the course of his life. Had no plans to actually write anything in any of those stories, and then something drew her back. And I love the idea that like this idea of, well, what would that be, what would that be like, and it's not just that she wants to tell this really targeted, specific individual story about this girl and the things she goes through, and of course say something at large about society in a way Le Guin I think so expertly and almost, that seems at times, effortlessly does. And I really really liked it a whole bunch.
Yeah, I think maybe later on we'll enjoy talking about that aspect of things. The idea that this island and its cult and all the various priests and priestesses are all sort of saying something about society. It's a metaphor, which she loves to do that. Le Guin loves to do that.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
so John, and interesting. John actually says that the Sparrowhawk books are an influence on the Locked Tomb books, which we had also read.
Can
That's
I
interesting.
can I get a throwaway factoid on the Locked Tomb books for you?
Uh-huh.
The only reason I have not put the new one, Nona the Ninth, in any of the book club polls, because yes, people have nominated it multiple times. The only reason I have not put it in the polls yet, and it's the most selfish fucking reason ever, is it's not in paperback yet, and I own the first two in paperback, and I don't want to have two books in a set in paperback and one in hardcover. So I'm literally just waiting until they release the paperback of that book, and then it will immediately be put into the poll. So
That's hilarious.
that's just in case anyone was wondering. That's why.
Fair, Scott. Entirely fair.
No, but
You
I
make
mean,
the rules.
now that he mentions it, I do think there is some perhaps intended connection here between this novel and what Tamsin Muir is doing in the Locked Tomb stuff. I mean, at least in like setting up where the character is at the beginning of the story, right?
Yeah.
It's very very similar ideas there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the Sparrowhawk Arrowheart connection is actually not the that's not so much a connection. The connection that I would make is actually between the main character of this book and Arrowhark, in that they are priestesses of a forgotten underground realm of darkness,
Mm-hmm.
who have decided to embrace that at least for the time being, and become goth queens. Um,
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, true, true. Um, so Chris says that they read both this and Wizard of Earthsea for the first time for book club. Definitely enjoyed this one more. I appreciated that it was more focused rather than spanning so many events. Yeah, I think that's fair. There's like we said, this is much more specific and individual.
yeah, yeah. And then David says they read it in high school but didn't get much out of it because they were young and stupid. I can totally think, I totally feel that I would have gotten much less out of this when I was younger because I just would be like, where's the swashbuckling adventure? Like the whole ending of the book is like quiet, thoughtful conversations on a boat, which then just culminates in them arriving somewhere, and then the book ends. So, again, not complaining. It's just, it's not really kind of maybe what you think you're getting into when you open a fantasy novel.
Yeah, no, and maybe that's a fun place to start is at the end, because I
Mhm.
do find the ending of this book one of the most fascinating parts about it because it does almost seem like not only is Le Guin specifically not doing a hero's journey type story, but it seems like she's actively like upending a lot of those tropes, or even just what you would expect in your typical story because like there's a part of me that is like okay, she's escaped from the tomb. She's kind of thrown away this religion and these people that like uh, stole her and converted her and turned her into this person. And she's tossed all that away and like, look, the rest of this book is going to be hopeful and triumphant. And even Ged has that kind of feeling, right? Like he's trying to be like, no, you don't understand. Like we're going to take you to this place and you'll be treated amazingly. Like you'll have everything you want and everything will be great. But the ending of this book is very melancholic. It's very like as if to say like in the real world you can't just throw away like a lifetime worth of influence on you and like the idea of you're free now, isn't that great? And like part of that is, well, I didn't necessarily even know I was not free up until a few weeks ago. So like the taking the time to process what you're gonna do and what your life is gonna be like and like it's so incredible to me that the book really dives into this stuff with a lot of detail.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how it's like she's aware abstractly that she was more or less kidnapped from her family
Mm-hmm.
and put into this cult, but of course now the cult is her life,
Yeah.
and she is, the priest of the cult. In fact, she's a very important figure within this cult, and that makes it even more kind of twisted up inside her that she has this, I think, mostly subconscious sort of latent resentment for what was done to her, and kind of how her normal life was stolen from her,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time I think like any young person would, she kind of enjoys the position of power and prestige that she's been given. And I think that's an interesting commentary on how people get their hooks into young people,
Yeah.
where you've basically given them an extraordinarily raw deal, but you give them a fancy title, and then they can that can go a surprisingly long way, actually.
And the illusion of power, right? Like she's like I love the sequences in the book where she's like learning to kind of stretch her power a little bit, like ordering people around. Like the moment where she says, "Oh, we need to post a guard here to guard this part of the wall," and it's just like a nonsense command that um, they don't absolutely need at all, but she's doing it just to stretch her power. And of course, she's acquiesced to because it's not really anything big and important, and it's like this illusion of power when she is actually bound by all this stuff. It's a great way of controlling this girl.
Yeah, yeah, and then we find out, when it kind of comes down to the actual sticking point, the priestess, I forgot everybody's names as usual.
Yeah, the only
Um,
names I know are the two main characters.
is it Kossel? I think Kossel might be
Sure,
the
yeah.
evil priestess, but she's actually basically the head abbess, or whatever word you want to use, and
Mm-hmm.
she clearly has all of the real power in the organization, despite the fact that our main character has this sort of ceremonial position. And really, it's like her role is not to really be the leader. Her role is this sort of almost sacrificial position,
Yeah.
um, where it's like she's been sacrificed, but she's kept alive as a kind of icon more than a human. Um,
Yeah, I find the ritual that we see there so fascinating because it comes so early in the book that you really don't even fully understand what's going on yet. But you see this ritual, which is her, laying her head down to have it chopped off, and then this last minute like interjection, which is just part of the ceremony, right? Like,
mhm.
but like it has this power of making it seem like, oh, you were just spared from something, despite the part that it's just part of the ceremony, right? It's all part of the build up of control and like influence of her. It's
Yeah.
really really well done.
I mean, you could call it a sort of narrative that she's being fed until she swallows it because she has no other real narrative, which I'd say that partly to tie back to what you were saying a minute ago that you wanted to talk about the ending, because the whole ending is almost like you could say that it's Ged trying several different tacks to give her an alternative narrative, because she's basically saying like, my life is over. I am a failure and a traitor to my people, etc., and just like leave me on an island somewhere, or just like let me die. she's
Mm-hmm.
she's really depressed, and he keeps trying to kind of give her like hope, and thoughts about how things could be better. And and like you say, even though she does ultimately choose to go with him, um I did feel kind of ambivalent about the ending. Like, I didn't really close the book with the feeling of like cheer. I don't quite know if that was the book not working on me the way it meant to, or if the book was supposed to make me feel that way.
I feel like it was the latter, in my opinion. I don't like there is this, you know, it is kind of remarkable that like you have Ged, this character that we saw in the first book that we liked so much, and it really seems like he stumbles upon this girl, doesn't really know what to do with her, obviously recognizes that she's being controlled by this horrible system and these nameless powers that are real. We need to talk about like this book's view on religion and spirituality and all this stuff too, because I think that's really a fascinating conversation. But
Hmm.
are real, and saves her from them. And then he's kind of in this like, I'll be there for you, but I actually don't know what to do with you. Like,
Hmm.
I'll bring you back to this main city. You're gonna love it, I swear. And it's very very obvious, like from the beginning, that no, she will not be happy there actually. And he eventually Ged like finds a place for her that would bring some semblance of happiness to her. But it is this kind of, I don't know, it is kind of bittersweet, the ending.
Yeah. Um,
And I don't know if this character returns in the later books or not. I would assume yes, probably, but I don't know.
yeah, I think I saw something suggesting that she does. So yeah, I guess I don't. I mean, I kind of want to invite the chat to chime in on like the tone or the meaning of the ending, because I don't have a lot else to say about that. I think probably my favorite part of the book overall is the increasingly tense mind games as she discovers, there's somebody in the tombs who's not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be there. And I think even if you don't know that it's literally Ged, our favorite guy, you know that it's just some innocent guy who doesn't deserve to die, and you like you get what's going on, and then her sort of continually thinking like, okay, I want to, I have to trap him, I have to catch him and kill him because that's what I have to do. But first, let's just keep him alive for a while longer, just because I want him to suffer. Yeah, that's why. It's because I want
Yeah,
him to
yeah,
suffer. Okay, okay, he's in really bad shape. All right, we got to nurse him back to health, but it's just so that he can suffer more. Um, and then they're like, "All right, you got to kill him now." And she's like, "Okay, I'm totally gonna kill him now. Absolutely gonna. Let me just take him around this corner." So like I loved, that was my favorite part, was watching herself twist herself into knots,
mm-hmm.
dealing with this impossible position where she's just absolutely not capable of killing this innocent person, but she's expected to, and she understands that it's like really bad if she doesn't, um, and just like the situation keeps getting worse and worse. That was the best part for me.
No, I think you're right. That's great. I kind of I want to like propose like it's interesting that the Wizard of Earth, a Wizard of Earthsea, not the Wizard of Earthsea, is a coming of age story about a boy, kind of coming to his power and learning things about himself in a very traditional hero's journey esque way. But I think this is a coming of age story as well, right? It's just a coming of age story from about a woman and therefore kind of dealing with the stuff she's going through, and it's very very different in that regard. And she is kind of coming to learn herself and growing up and experiencing the shift from childhood to adulthood. And so the ending to me is part of this idea that like you know learning more about how the world works is not necessarily going to leave you happier. It leaves you more whole. I think is but that's what I feel like the melancholy is like. Okay, you've learned that you're the illusion of the life you had was exactly that, an illusion, and you're free from it now. Hooray! But life is cruel and hard and difficult, and that doesn't mean you're going to be happy forever.
Yeah, there's just not enough time to
Yeah.
find a new thing to be the thing that she cares about, or a new group of people. I mean, even I correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Ged is explicitly not basically saying you can be my apprentice and I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
He's like,
No.
no, I'm gonna go off and be a wizard,
Yeah, I got shit to do. I can't. I
which
can't. Yeah.
so it's like very intentionally leaving the character in a lurch,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you just kind of have to decide how you feel about that, and I guess it's like, yeah, I mean, it's better for her to be free than for her to be, the doomed priestess of this evil uh, shadow realm, um, where you could kind of tell that that role was just going to grind her up over time, because she was going to be expected to like pass sentences on people, and it would have turned her into something dark and twisted, and that was kind of the point of that place. In a sense, it was like the darkness of that place wanted to feed on her. That was one thing I thought about, probably belatedly, was like, she's called the Eaten One. That's like her ceremonial title. And at first I was just like, yeah, it's kind of a fun, piece of religious imagery. But then I think eventually I realized, like, oh, like, actually she's sort of a person who's been sacrificed to the darkness. And it's not like she just gets eaten in one bite. It's like she gets eaten over the course of her whole life, as they eat up all of the light and goodness in her, and turn her into, an old, bitter person who then dies, and then they just replace her with another innocent child. So of course it's good that she got out of that situation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's like immediately happy.
Yeah, I like what John is saying here. Part of losing your religion, which he quoted the song, which is wonderful, and growing up, so to speak, is learning that there isn't instant salvation or one-stop fixes to all solutions. It's hard and gradual, and there's no guarantee. Yeah, and I think that's what our character is left with at the end of the story is that. I do think, turning back to the religious part of this, I do think it's a very interesting choice. This is obviously like a story about learning that this religion is controlling her, but it's not a story about learning the religion is a lie. Which is a really fascinating thing to dive into, I think, here, because like one of the first chinks in her armor is kind of learning that there are people in this world that don't have faith, right? Like her friend is the person, I can't remember her name either, but she's like, yeah, I don't really believe in any of this stuff and blah blah blah. And then the other big moment is when that one priestess like is talking shit and not being punished, not being punished by the nameless ones. And of course we learn the reason for that is because the nameless ones are being held at bay by Ged. But that's a really interesting idea, right? That like these people, this religion or these things, these beings are real. It's not that this religion was a lie. It's not that this thing was a lie, that it was just something made up for control. It's real, and it is still about control.
Hmm.
I think, one of the things, I don't know if we talked about with The Wizard of Earthsea, is how influenced by Taoism that novel was. I think that's something Le Guin like explicitly stated she was exploring in Earthsea in general. And so this idea that the bad stuff is out there, it's there. It's just that's not the shit you should be worshiping, right? That's not the shit you should be, committing yourself to.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. That I like that. I mean, I think it goes well with the overall, I don't know what word to use, cosmology of these books, as far as I understand it anyway, where it's all it makes sense that there would be kind of dark spiritual energies like this. It's basically the cave on Dagobah. That's what it is.
I love the labyrinth. Can I just say, like, generally, like, stories with labyrinths in them, I just tend to like them because
Hmm.
it's just a cool fun idea, and the labyrinth can be so symbolic of one's journey. And I love her learning the twists and turns of it, like having it all memorized, this idea that she has to navigate it all in the dark. And I love the idea that, like, she knows the way to the treasure area before before she, like, long before she even goes there to explore it. I love
Hmm.
all of that. It's really great.
Yeah, it was interesting how she was sort of depicted as having almost like a superhuman memory. Um, I don't know if it was literally supposed to be like a magical thing or if it was just like, no, she's just really smart. But the idea that she was going to memorize the labyrinth just by having people recite things to her, and that it was actually like this knowledge that was passed down by people who couldn't even actually travel to those locations. They just had to memorize the directions and then repeat them to someone else.
Hmm.
It's really
Hmm.
fun, the fun ideas there.
Yeah.
The idea of I wanted to mention and talk about the idea that, like, one thing that's strange about the book, I guess, is that our protagonist is, a young person who's in a bad situation, which is approximately close, at least, to being a standard fantasy plot. And then we have our wizard character, but Ged isn't a proper Gandalf, and um, Arha isn't a proper Frodo. It's interesting because, like, Ged in this book is um, he's wise, but he's not perfectly wise. He's competent, but he's not perfectly competent. Um, he's sort of barely hanging on for the entire book, actually, and really does rely on her choices.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it, is like he doesn't exert his like force as a wizard to try to bust out, which you kind of imagine he probably could if he really wanted to. But it's like he refuses to do that and instead chooses to put his faith in her innate goodness and humanity, and then that faith is borne out, which it's almost like that's like he knows it will be, because that is his discipline as an Earthsea wizard, is just knowing the truth of people.
Yeah.
And I,
It,
I just like the way Get is used in this book is really interesting.
it's great because it allows her to keep her agency. Like, the biggest worry in a book like this is it actually, and the reaction I had when Ged shows up is that he's just gonna, like, take control of the book and, like, grab it, and it's gonna become his story.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the biggest worries. And the thing that I love about it is that it's never his story. I mean, he's in the story, but it's never his. It's always her story. And yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that not only that the book allows her to have agency in what she's doing and this discovery and change she's going through, but also, like, the way he convinces her or shows her is not, like, really through his actions, but just through his kindness and his in that exact trust in her that you're talking about. Like, she has been, like, trained and told over and over and over again that these people like him are evil, selfish, horrible people, and there's nothing good in there, and there's nothing good about them, and you should immediately distrust them. And the way he convince her that that's not true is not by trying to convince her, but just by being his essential self and showing that goodness, showing that light. There's a lot of light and darkness imagery in this story, and just being that light for her that just exposes the truth. And I think that's great. It allows him to have a mark and an impact in this book, but again, he doesn't ever take it over.
Yeah, yeah, and he's not really being manipulative. He's just kind of being himself. He's like, well, going to going to have integrity and be a good person and be trustworthy, and you know, so be it. If she decides to kill me, I guess, but I'm not going to like try to destroy this poor innocent girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really basically I guess I guess it just makes me smile because we saw Ged get this hard won wisdom in the previous book,
Mm-hmm.
and now you see him trying to live that out and be that guy.
Yeah.
But,
I love, one of the other things I really liked is these deities that she's a priestess of are called the Nameless Ones, and we know from A Wizard of Earthsea and this book as well that like names in this world are really important, right? The way a wizard works is by speaking something's true name to it, and that allows it to have power over it, and that's so much of what that story was about. And then introducing these monsters, these evil beings called the Nameless Ones, seems like an exact affront to that. How can anything in this world be nameless? The whole kind of point of the first book was that everything has a name. Even this evil shadow that was chasing Ged all around Earthsea had a name. And I love the kind of, it's not a throwaway line, but the way Ged just like so casually goes, no, they all have names still. They definitely do. That's just bullshit. Everything has a name. I really liked that continuation of the name theme that we enjoyed so much in that first book.
yeah, me too. And I think I've always enjoyed the naming because it seems to be a metaphor for truly understanding someone.
Yeah.
Like if you know their name, it's that you truly understand them, and then in reality, what that means is that you can only really have power in this world if you really understand the nature of what you're doing. And then when you do truly understand something, you will tend to have empathy for that thing and not just want to control it. In fact, you could even argue that you can't control it because it has become part of you, which is I think that goes along with the idea that it's a Taoist
Mm-hmm.
sort of a Taoist world, where in a Taoist sort of framework, the idea of control is anathema. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the way that you do things is you go with the flow, and you just incorporate yourself into that flow, and that's the way we see Ged behaving in this book, actually. So.
Yeah, no, totally. I wanted to talk to you about a little bit about gender and a little bit about sexuality, because I think, and I'm going to try to feel my way through this because I'm not 100% sure about this, but one of the things that I think is really interesting about this book is obviously we're set up in this world where it's this young girl. She's 16 years old, I think, at the time of the book, surrounded by nothing but women. The only men in her life are specifically eunuchs. And then Ged like becomes like the first man that quote unquote that she's ever really come across. And I wonder if there's something here, like not specifically about like, oh, she definitely wants to bang this guy, because that's not it. But it's just the idea of part of any coming of age story is this coming into yourself and coming into, being an adult. And part of being an adult is the idea of sexuality and like seeking that and exploring that, and that's not something she's ever had to do before. So I mean, it's not like it's a direct focus of this book, because again, there's no sexual stuff between the two of them at all, but I do kind of feel like the choice to put her in an all woman society except for these specifically asexual people, it seems like a choice that I think Le Guin is saying something about here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It seems very intentional that we have only the other women and the eunuchs are put in charge
Yeah.
of her, and she's sort of intentionally kept undeveloped in that way. And I think that's yet another way that like the idea of this whole, this whole culture, this whole religion, this whole society is like we're going to sort of sacrifice these women and deny them everything that would make them flourish and
Mm-hmm.
come into their full potential, and just let the darkness eat them up over on this island with these big rocks. And yeah, denying them any kind of healthy expression of their sexuality is part of that.
Yeah.
And then Ged, like, part of the transgression of Ged's existence here isn't just like that he broke into the tomb. It's like he is a man
Yeah.
who is here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you can even I mean, the idea of like breaking into the cloister, is potentially something that was in Le Guin's mind as she was, he's breaking into the cloister to steal the treasure, right?
Yeah.
Wink, wink. Um, except it's he's literally there for the treasure, but also
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I agree with you that there is something to this idea that it's, she's a 16-year-old girl. She ought to be having her awakening in these regards, and so you know handsome older man yet stumbles into her life.
Sure.
Um,
But I love that it's not explicitly sexual, and what John is saying, it disturbs me to my core that in the Sci-Fi Channel original movie Ged and Tanar bang, because that's awful. He says Le Guin hated it, and I totally understand why, because I think there's a way to explore this idea of sexuality and sexual awakening, and
mhm,
without talking about the specific physical part of it, just like
mhm,
this discovery of the opposite sex, or whatever you're attracted to, whatever, this discovery of this part of you, is a key part of that, coming of age type stuff, and that is, you're absolutely right, something that's explicitly being denied her, because of this situation they put her in, and especially in a society that we don't see much of the Kargish society here, but like and we see enough of it to see it's an intensely patriarchal society, right? You have the god kings, and they basically control everything, and you have the priestesses, which are kind of shoved away on this island in the middle of this desert island where there's nothing and nobody. Um, you
mhm.
know,
Yeah, I like what David said here about how she doesn't even think of herself as being female until Ged is there to offer a contrast, and
yeah,
how I think that's in line with what we're talking about. Where, yeah, it's not like it's a love story, but it is a story about sexuality and growing up, and that being part of growing up. I mean,
yeah,
interestingly, that was a part of Ged's original story that I guess it wasn't missing. There was an element that, like, there's a girl that he's interested in, but I felt like it was a pretty minor part of that story overall. Unless that was a long time ago. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I honestly don't remember.
All I remember is that, like, there was a girl who he met, and he, like, later it was revealed that he had, like, figured out her name, her true name, just by knowing her, and that this was like a sign of how awesome he was. But
Yeah, I know he summons the shadow like accidentally when he's trying to be impressive, but I don't remember if that's specifically like trying to impress a girl.
I don't think it is. But
I
yeah,
don't
it's
remember.
interesting because now I want to rethink that book too,
Yeah.
under sort of a similar lens.
Yeah, because that was the first Le Guin book we read, and I don't think we'd necessarily like if I had read that after I had read both The Dispossessed and Left Hand of Darkness, I think I would be looking for a lot more examination on gender from Le Guin, because she obviously seems really into exploring those things.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, John is saying that we have we have this amulet that's been broken into two pieces, which is the humanity being broken into two genders, which are then rejoined, and yeah, that's cool.
I like this a lot. Yeah. One thing I wanted to do with you is kind of compare and contrast. Now that we've read two Earthsea novels and we've read two novels, I know The Dispossessed and Left Handed Darkness are like part of I forget the name of it. I don't. There's a name. I'm not remembering it. they're very different types of novels, right? I mean, obviously the most clear difference is I think the Earthsea novels are specifically meant for younger children, right? Like, these are young adult novels, although I don't think that phrase existed when these books were written. But these are young adult novels, and I don't think those other two are explicitly that. But the Hainish cycle, thank you, John. That's what it's called. But I also feel like there's an optimism in Earthsea and this book that doesn't exist. Like I don't know. I feel like both the Left Hand of Darkness and especially the Dispossessed are kind of like inherently pessimistic books. You know,
Yeah.
especially the Dispossessed. I think maybe I'm misremembering how that book ends, but I just like that was kind of like, oh yeah, you want a utopia? Well, fuck you. No
Well,
way that's ever gonna happen.
it's funny. I remember the Left Hand of Darkness as being the one that left me with a really sad feeling.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, they both, and to me those books, the science fiction books, are richer in the ways that I sort of just natively appreciate, where it's
sure.
like, here's a 3-page conversation about physics, and I'm like, yeah, or like the philosophy of science or something really interesting like that. And this book is a lot more like there's kind of the plot, which is obvious, and then there's like all the layers of psychology and theme that are much more kind of densely woven, almost to the point of being um, obscuring. Like it didn't occur to me until this conversation that like gender and sexuality were a theme of this book that we're talking about now. Even though now that we're talking about it, it's like obvious. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
of course it is.
I just feel like this, like the reason I thought about this is John's comment on like the pieces of the broken amulet coming together is kind of the unification of the genders and showing how cooperation and coordination is like the best way to succeed in things, because it's these two characters working together that are they're able to beat, you know, nameless horrible demon monsters, and that's such an important theme of the novel, and that strikes me as like inherently optimistic. Like, look, like as long as we get together and work together, you know, you can overcome anything, and that just feels more optimistic to me than anything we saw in those Hainish books.
Hmm. Sure. I think that Ged in particular, being sort of, I guess, the central character of this world, he is this. The idea of a person like Ged existing is itself an optimistic idea, where he's something like a Gandalf, where he's a person, but he's so full of wisdom and generosity of spirit that he almost becomes more than a person just through like the force of his will and the clarity of his intent.
Sure.
And it's like, wow, what a beautiful idea. And there's nothing really like that in the science fiction books. There's nothing that optimistic about kind of the human spirit in those books.
Yeah, and John raises a good point too, that these books are written for like children, so you don't want to bum them out too much. Let them allow the slow ravages of life to turn their optimism into pessimism. You don't have to do it in a novel. Um,
I
but
feel
no,
like
I mean,
novels.
I, I,
I feel like novels have mostly been the main source of my of destroying my optimism, but
that's true.
that's okay.
But not these.
Not
I don't.
these.
But maybe I don't know. Like you were talking about how you were kind of melancholic finishing this book a little bit. So
I was definitely not like yay. I was like, I don't know if is she gonna be okay? It's not
yeah,
entirely clear. Um,
yeah, and maybe like that's the point is that we don't get to know that, right? That like yes, you've been freed. You're away from this horrible place, but you know that doesn't mean that you're gonna be okay, and it's gonna take time and work. Um,
yeah, I guess So one way of looking at this aspect of things is like the book does not give us like a 3-page epilogue where it's like, and then she found her place in the glassblowers guild of the city and met a man one day. and had 3 kids. And no, it's just like she arrived at the city, and that's the end of the book. And you decide what you think happened.
The
Um,
the Glass Blowers Guild?
Glass Blowers Guild.
Why why the Glass Blowers Guild?
Um,
Why was that the first thing that came to your brain? Is my question. Are you
because
staring at blown glass in your
no,
room or something?
I just, you go to the Renaissance Festival, and there's blown glass
Did you go to the
everywhere.
Renaissance Festival recently?
No, but in a fantasy setting, you pretty much just imagine that it's like the Renaissance Festival because there's people in armor and with like magic staffs walking around.
Okay.
And you figure there's going to be stalls, and at some of the stalls, they sell the turkey legs, and at some of the stalls, they blow glass. So you just be glad that I didn't say that she joined the turkey leg
The
sales.
Turkey
Oh,
Leg Emporium.
yeah, the turkey leg emporium that produces an endless supply of perfectly roasted turkey legs so the people of Earthsea.
Those are those turkey legs are far too big.
Well, you need a lot of turkey leg when you're walking around all day.
Looking at blown glass.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Anything else you specifically wanted to talk about with RC? I mean, I think the thing about this book is, I mean, certainly we've been talking for almost an hour now. There's things to talk about, but one of the things, one of the things I'm was kind of not surprised about, but worried about when I finished this book was like, that was just a delightful book. I loved my experience with it. It only took me a few hours to read it, and I don't know what I'm gonna say about it.
Yeah, I was hoping that this would be one of those ones where we found stuff to say about it while we're sitting here, but
I think we have.
I think we did an okay job. But I felt the same way with the Wizard of Earthsea, where it's like it's kind of just this beautifully drawn story that leaves you with a complex feeling that's really hard to sort of dig into, and that makes it hard to talk about. And if I were better at my job, I'd be able to say exactly exactly what and why. I guess one thing I wanted to talk about is what John just asked about, coincidentally enough, or maybe I read what he said first, and then that's why I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
In either case, talk about the eunuch character whose name was Manan or Manan or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Manan, Manan was it?
Manan.
I think it was.
His name is Man. He's a
Yeah,
eunuch who's named Man.
yeah. It is interesting that she does this stuff, by the way, because
Mm-hmm.
the eunuch's name is Manan. Her name is Aha, which reminds me a lot of the character named I in Left Hand of Darkness, where the idea is like his name was the exclamation of pain or fear, and her name is Aha, which is like another kind of onomatopoeic sound.
Sure.
Um, but anyway, to talk specifically about that character, he made me sad. Like his
Yeah.
existence seemed very, very sad. Like as much as her life has been stolen away from her, his life has been stolen away from him so completely. And like the only joy that he really has in the world is kind of caring for her. But honestly, it's not like he gets a ton of joy from it.
Yeah.
It's all he has, but that doesn't mean that it's enough, right?
Yeah, and it's this like these two people kind of trapped in this same system, finding some level of support for each other, right? But still ultimately completely trapped by the system. And it's in this patriarchal society, he's been literally demasculinated, right? Like that is the idea of being a eunuch. And his death is so, it's sad. It's just really
Yeah.
like it just kind of happens, right? And it's
Hmm.
like it's not some big confrontation. There's not some big, emotional dramatic stakes of like she runs into him and is like, no, 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 you don't understand. Like I've learned the truth about everything, and like he's just there to help save her. He thinks that Ged is hurting her. He goes to engage with him, and then he falls and dies.
Hmm.
And that's it. And
Yeah.
it's like a very depressing look on like that for in this society, he cannot escape. There's no escape for a person like him.
Yeah, he was. You could say he was too far gone, or he had been, to use the
Yeah.
metaphor, he had been eaten too completely. Uh, there was no, and also he thought he was protecting her. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, he did.
he thought like I need to stop her from doing this. I need to, get her back in the good graces of the priestess. Everything will be fine. And his death felt very tragic. By the way, the audiobook reader used there's like this querulous, kind of pitiful voice for him that just makes you pity him even before this event happens. So you're just kind of a kick the dog moment
Yeah.
actually that he finally does die.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I really do like the name, the fact that his name is essentially man, and
mhm.
this idea that like, we talked about it earlier that like that Ged is the first quote unquote man she's met, which is of course not true, right? Like the fact that he got his stuff chopped off doesn't make him not a man, right?
Mhm.
But and I think that's trying to show that. But in the society, it does differentiate. In the society, it does differentiate him in their mind in a key way. Um, and so he is powerless in that society, almost more powerless than she is in a lot of
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that goes right in line with something John just said in the chat, which is
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
way of illustrating how a patriarchal society harms men just as much as women.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Like now that's borderline become a cliche. It's sort of accepted as being true. But I
Yeah.
feel like back when Le Guin was writing this, the idea that the patriarchal standards of society not only is this bad for women and oppressive to women, but it's also very bad for men and oppressive to men just in different ways. Um, which I agree that that's what the book is saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I totally agree. That's great. Anything else you want to talk
I don't
about?
I don't think so.
I feel like this is like one of the quickest we've ever done,
Yeah,
which is no reflection on the book at all. I think because I
it's
really love this book.
it's a short book. It's got a small number of characters. One of the reasons we talk for a long time about books is if they have a bunch of different characters that you have to hit, and this one just didn't have that many characters, so
True.
and it didn't have that many different plot movements. It's just a short book, so
Yeah,
good good read though.
I liked it quite a bit. I do definitely want to explore the rest of Earthsea. I mean, I've long said that my like priority. I just finally finished my Stephen King project last month. I finally read. Well, I still have one more book, but you and I are having to decide whether I'm going to read that book on my own or if we're going to wait till we cover it on our show. So I find myself with all this free book time now suddenly, and I think just going through all of Le Guin's novels, short stories, essays. I want to read everything she's ever written.
Hmm. Me too. Yeah. If anything, I'm not rushing to read them all because I feel like I want to read them at a deliberate pace over a number of years so that I can kind of digest all of them
Yeah,
because
no, that's fair.
I don't even feel like I've fully digested, The Dispossessed. That was one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think maybe the amount of time we put between Wizard of Earthsea and this book was maybe too much time, but
maybe,
I definitely I don't want to read them back to back to back.
yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I love what John's saying here. She only wrote new books in the series when she had something new she thought of. So each one is a completely rediscovery and reanalysis of the world. That's great because I think I might be mistaken, but it's not like she wrote them back to back to back, right? That she only came back to it later. I need to look this up actually. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Farthest Shore. Well, that came out a year later, so I'm a liar.
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, how many books did she write? Like,
Like total?
yeah,
A lot.
seems like a lot. Yeah. Hmm. That is a
Let's
true
see. I
statement.
mean, it's not like Stephen King level, but nobody is.
Yeah.
Um, Here we go. Bibliography. Yeah, this is. I'm scrolling a whole lot here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wow, it's still
Yeah.
going. I mean,
A number.
a lot of this is short stories, but
Okay.
and she wrote poetry and essays, and yeah, she was very prolific for sure.
Yep.
All right. Wow, it was 5 years ago we read A Wizard of Earthsea because
Oh my God.
I remember cause she died in 2018, and I remember like it was that month that she passed away that we were reading that book.
Wow, you're right. I remember that now that you mention
Yeah.
it.
All right. I think that's gonna do it for this one. This is last chance if you joined late, to vote in the poll. I will put it in chat once again. Oh no, that's results. Disregard. Remove. I guess it doesn't matter if you see the results, but I just wanted to post the thing that's not the, because they can just see the results themselves. But okay, I'm gonna sit here and refresh. One thing we should note for y'all, as we get ready to reveal what the book is for next month, is we're gonna have kind of a quick turnaround here. We normally try to do 4 weeks between books, but Matt is gonna be traveling for vacation in June. I didn't know we still were allowed to take those, but apparently he's doing it. So we're going to have next month's book club on the true last Friday of the month. So May's is going to be on the 26th, which is a mere 3 weeks away. So just an FYI for y'all, that is how it's going to go. We'll of course post that in the actual post and everything, and remind people of it several times. But it is going to be only 3 weeks. So we have a bit of reading to do.
You can do it. I believe in you.
I know. All right, I am gonna lock it down now, and take the numbers here and put them in here. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so it looks like next month's book is going to be Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the sequel to Children of Time, the wonderful science fiction book about spiders, that I think we both really, really liked. I was so excited because I was at a bookstore last weekend just looking around, and I saw that there was another book by him, because I knew Children of Ruin existed, but I saw that there was a third one, and I was like, when the fuck did that happen? I thought Children of Ruin just came out like last year. But no, the one that just came out last year is the third one, and Children of Ruin came out a few years ago. But There's a third book in the series. I think we both really liked the first book. I understand whenever we do these sequels like this, we're kind of inherently limiting people, because if you haven't read the first book, there might not be time to read both before this book club. But we really like to follow up on these ones that we really, really liked, because Children of Time was great.
Yeah, I agree with John that it felt like a 70s sci-fi novel, but
Yeah.
it was only written in 2016.
Totally, 100%. That was such a weird experience learning that book had just come out. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about this. I really enjoyed the writing of the first one. You know what? I just realized we didn't really talk about Le Guin's prose at all this week. I effortlessly and wonderful. She's just so fucking good at this. Like, she's just so good at it.
Yeah, right. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, yeah, once again, perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful, like honey in your ears.
I can't even, like, maybe next time we read a Le Guin, I'll spend some time really focusing on, like, what exactly it is that she's doing that makes it. It does. To me, it just feels like effortlessly beautiful. Like, it's just, she just kind of comes out there and says, look, I'm fucking great at this. Here I go. You like this sentence? Yeah, I know you like this sentence. It's an awesome sentence. Fuck you. Okay, maybe she's not quite as angry about it, but
she might be.
Maybe. I don't know. She's really good. She's really good at this whole thing. She should do it professionally, I think.
I agree. I'd like to see more. Yeah.
Okay, so next month, Children of Ruin. I'm really excited about this. I think it is a little bit longer. I think it's Matt, I think I was looking it up. It's 15 hours audiobook for you. So I think that's about 450 pages. So I'm probably going to start it like this weekend to make sure I finish it in those 3 weeks. And you should too. So that'll be May 26th, 3 weeks from now, Children of Ruin. There will be an official post on Monday to note that. But I think that's going to do it for us this month. Great conversation, sparsely attended this month, but that's okay.
Yeah,
y'all were great in chat. That really, really, really love talking with y'all about this one.
Yeah, you really helped us along there. Definitely appreciate that.
Oh, David says that Le Guin started by writing Earthsea specifically as poetry, and then expanded her writing. Oh, she just started as a poet.
Okay. Yeah, that
That makes
doesn't
sense. That makes
surprise me
sense.
at all. Yeah.
No,
I
not at
mean,
all.
I've always heard that the best novelists practice poetry and the best poets practice long form fiction.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. So thanks again. If you like what we do here and you want to support us, then please head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia and consider donating at any available level over there. You'll get access to the ability to vote for the books that we talk about each month, as well as a bunch of other exclusive features. So go check that out.
That's right. And if you have any questions or comments or just want to reach out and tell us what you think of any of these books we're covering or what books we should cover, you can find us on Twitter at doofmedia or email us at doofmedia@gmail.com. David is saying I was right the first time. She was originally writing Wizard of Earthsea, or maybe just the entire Earthsea series as poetry, and then turned it into prose later. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
love it. Love it. I would love to see some Earthsea poetry. I bet she wrote some.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right, folks. We will see you next month for more super spiders, maybe. I don't know.
Or something even worse.
I would be kind of a little bit bummed if, like, the super spiders weren't in the story at all.
Yeah, I have no idea, actually. I have aggressively not found out about this book because I want to be surprised the way I was with the first one.
Same. All right. We'll see you all next month. Okay, let me stop the recording, folks. If y'all, I'm gonna go play video games now on Twitch.tv. So if y'all want to hang out still and just chat about whatever, I'm gonna be playing a game called Dredge, which is a very chill, not at all scary fishing game.
That doesn't sound right to me.
No,
Okay.
it's not as Lovecraftian as shit.
Awesome.
So if y'all want to still hang out, it's getting late, so y'all might want to go to bed. But I'll be over there. I've been wanting to play this frickin' fishing game all week, and I haven't been able to. So I'm gonna go play this frickin' fishing game.
All right, sounds fun, Scott.
But yeah. So if you want to hang out there, twitch.tv/doofmedia. But I'll catch y'all. If not, catch everyone next month. Have a good weekend.